All right, I see. And then do you see any, I mean, I can't think of what are some other potential
Yeah,
challenges or risks with this?
right. Good, 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 good. That's really good. I mean, I've highlighted some of them, kind of
Yes.
in passing during this call, but I definitely want to reiterate the value of the property is very, very important. The value of the property, I have experienced a few times, NAF Cash not wanting to front the cash because the offer price that the buyer wants to put on the property is just substantially higher. So what we're afraid of and what we don't want, and this addresses one of your concerns before, how do you know that New American Funding is going to sell this property to you? It's because what we don't want is us buying a property at 700,000 all cash, the appraisal coming back at 600,000, and the buyer saying, I don't want this property for 700,000 if it's only worth 600,000, and then we're stuck with this property. That's kind of how New American Funding loses money, is just by accumulating these properties, because then we have to go and sell it and it's
Okay.
not worth what we bought it for. So the value of the property is very important. The inspection period, that 10-day period when we're buying the property, that you and your real estate agent go through the property and make sure you want it, is very important, because no is a very good answer. If during that inspection period, if you see anything with the property you don't like and the seller doesn't want to fix it or the seller doesn't want to credit for it, we don't want you to have that property you're not happy with. We'll cancel and we'll move on to the next property to put a cash offer on that. We want you to be happy with the property. So those two things, and of the two buyers that we talked about, the one buyer that has a property to sell, that's kind of what this loan program is geared towards. If you have a property to sell and you are, like we said, contingent on buying your next property until you sell this property, you're at the bottom of the priority list to sellers out there, because the seller does not want to wait on your property to sell. That's what NAF Cash is geared towards. If you have a property to sell, we will front you the money to buy the property all cash and wait for your property to sell. You do need to qualify. We do need to know how much you're going to sell your property for and how much you're going to net to make sure you're going to get this money. You need to pay the 1.6%, and you need to pay the per diem while your property is selling, on the new property. But that's really what it's geared towards. People who, in all honesty, people who don't have a property to sell, kind of like a first-time home buyer that has 5% down or 10% down, we don't really have a problem getting those offers accepted in this market, because our interest rates are very competitive, our loan officers are very knowledgeable, and we can close quicker than most of the lenders out there. So the sellers really like our buyers who don't have a property to sell. We're able to do traditional financing with that and not have to incur the 1.6%. If you don't need NAF cash, we don't want you to use NAF Cash, because fiduciarily, I don't want to charge you a 1.6% fee that you don't need. So, but really, when you have a property to sell, this is a super, super helpful tool to buy your next property before your current property sells.
Okay. And so interesting. And so what would be some logical recommendations you have if I'm thinking about the program, not sure about it?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
what would you recommend to me to do?
Yeah, yeah. Usually with a home buyer, the first thing you want to do is really talk to a lender in any situation. But in this situation, the buyer that has a property to sell, the first conversation should be with the real estate agent that's going to sell their property, and ask them, how long do you think my property is going to take to sell in this market? And if it's more than it's going to fly off the market and we're not going to have a problem, which, a lot of times selling a property does take a little longer, to put it on the market, to get ready, to take pictures, to wait for the right buyer to come in. If that's the conversation that you have with your realtor upfront, NAF Cash is the program for you. Then you call me and we talk about the NAF Cash program, try to get you qualified for it, discuss the fees, make sure you're comfortable, so that when you're out there looking for properties, you know what's going to happen with the NAF Cash program. But that initial conversation with the listing agent, the realtor who's going to sell your property, about, how long do you think this is going to take to sell the property? And I'm looking to buy a property kind of at the same time. I know about this NAF Cash program as a real estate professional, Mr. or Mrs. listing agent. What do you think about this NAF Cash program? And of course, they would want you to use it, because they want you to be able to be on the market as a buyer kind of before your property sells. That's why it's such a great tool.
Okay, so what I'm kind of hearing is the perspective person thinking about it should have a professional properly evaluate their property to know what they're going to net on the sale and how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
and then call you up for a consultation and get pre-approved to see if they qualify for the program and what it's going to entail. And for that, I mean, does that cost them any money to get pre-approved or to, see if they qualify for the program, or how does that work?
Good question. Yeah, there's no upfront fees at all. Whether it's a soft pull where we just want to generally look at the credit. Obviously, we can't pre-underwrite the file just off of a soft pull. But if you have credit concerns and you only want a soft pull, there's no cost for that. If you want to get started looking for properties right away, a hard inquiry is required. There's no cost for that. And if we run the hard inquiry and we see that there are maybe high credit card bills, there's a credit improvement report that comes free, again, free with our credit reports that says, hey, if you pay down these 3 credit cards, your score can go up by 20 points or 40 points or whatever, so that we can get up to that credit score that you need. All of that is free. And to be honest with you, there's no obligation. Like if you have your own loan officer that you really, really like, but they don't have this NAF Cash program, you can come to me, get pre-approved for the NAF Cash, and if you don't like it, go back to the other loan officer. That's fine. There's no obligation to use this program even if you got fully qualified. So no cost is obviously 100% accurate, and it's important, but also there's no obligation. It's just you want to have as many options as possible as a seller/buyer.
Okay. Great. So thanks for your time, Mike. You're being a resource for the insights and being helpful. We'll put Mike's information in this video. So appreciate your time.